Cassie stepped into the courtroom with trembling hands and eyes that held back years of pain. The air was thick with anticipation. Paparazzi flashes still burned in the back of her mind, but nothing could prepare the world for what she was about. Out to say. For the first time, in front of cameras, lawyers, and a judge who leaned in with furrowed brows, Cassie was ready to unleash the truth. Every shattered moment, every terrifying scream, every night spent surviving what she described as freak-off ordeals that haunted her sleep. The silence before she spoke was deafening. Then her voice cracked through the courtroom like a lightning strike. "He controlled everything," she said. "My clothes, my calls, even when I could breathe." Jaws dropped. Even seasoned court reporters sat frozen. Diddy, sitting across from her in an icy tailored suit, couldn't look her in the eye. His attorney scribbled notes furiously, but they couldn't stop what was coming next. Cassie's testimony wasn't just emotional, it was volcanic. Outside, fans stood glued to their phones. Inside, gasps echoed as she detailed twisted nights filled with manipulation, isolation, and psychological torment. And just when the court thought it had heard the worst, Cassie whispered, the words that would change everything. Under the sharp gaze of the courtroom lights, Cassie's voice wavered but didn't break. She sat with her hands clasped tightly together, as though holding her own strength in place. Across the room, Diddy leaned back in his chair, his jaw tight, arms crossed, eyes darting around the room, but never landing on her. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but that didn't stop the word from spreading. Cassie was finally telling her truth. "It started small," she began, her tone low, nearly trembling. "He made suggestions. What to wear, who I should stop talking to. At first, it felt like love, like he was just protective, but it grew darker." The courtroom held its breath. Lawyers remained still. Even the stenographer looked up for a moment, eyes wide. Cassie described nights when Diddy would host what he called freak-offs, private parties where she was expected to entertain guests, wear what he selected, and do whatever was demanded. "If I hesitated," she said, he'd smile and say, "You want this life, right? Then act like it." Her voice cracked on that line, and the courtroom flinched with her. The audience watching the live updates online was stunned. Fans flooded social media. Many refused to believe it. Others said they always suspected something. Hashtags exploded within minutes. "Justice for Cassie." "How did it exposed?" The judge sat motionless, listening, but his knuckles gripped the sides of his bench a little too tightly. Cassie continued, detailing how she'd sometimes wake up in hotels with no memory of how she got there. "He would drug me sometimes," she said bluntly, as gasps rippled across the courtroom. "He never admitted it, but I wake up sore, alone and broken." At that moment, Diddy whispered something to his attorney, who immediately requested a recess. The judge denied it. "She has the floor," the judge said sternly. The room grew colder. Cassie turned to describe one particularly harrowing night in Las Vegas. "He flew me out without telling me why. I thought it was for the awards show. When I got there, he said it was a private retreat, just us. But when I walked into the suite, there were 5 other men waiting. He just smiled and shut the door behind me." Someone in the courtroom sobbed audibly. Cassie paused and then said, "He took my phone, locked me in, told me to make them happy." Outside, former friends and colleagues of Cassie's were now speaking out. One backup dancer tweeted, "We weren't allowed to talk to her without permission. It always felt off." Another former assistant posted, "I left after 2 weeks. Something in that house wasn't right." Cassie went on, sharing how her attempts to leave were met with threats. "He once held a gun to my dog's head and said, 'Walk out that door and you'll find his body in a trash can.' I stayed." She trembled, and a tissue box was passed to her by a clerk. The room was silent except for the sniffles and scribbles of reporters. She talked about how her mother begged her to leave, how her sister once drove 6 hours just to try and get her out. "I couldn't. I was terrified. I thought I'd die if I left." Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop. "And yet every time I stayed, I died a little more," did his team finally stood, objecting to the testimony. "This is prejudicial," the attorney barked. "Irrelevant character assassination." The judge stared at him coldly. "You'll get your turn. Sit down." Cassie then revealed something that sent shockwaves through the room. He recorded everything, every freak off, every breakdown. He said if I ever spoke, he'd leak it all. Ruined me, so I stayed silent. But now, I don't care, let them see. That single line was enough to ignite the internet like wildfire. Screenshots from old videos, blurry images from clubs, and unverified audio clips began circulating. Fans dug up old interviews where Cassie seemed withdrawn, distracted, or visibly uncomfortable beside Diddy. The signs were there all along, many now claimed, but the most chilling moment of that day came when Cassie described a night in 2017. He beat me with a champagne bottle, she said, lifting her sleeve to reveal a faded scar. I had to lie to the doctor. Said I slipped in the shower. He was right beside me, smiling the whole time. The judge called for a pause, but Cassie shook her head. No, if I stop now, I won't start again. She stared at Diddy, who still wouldn't meet her gaze. And that's when she dropped the bombshell no one saw coming. He wasn't alone in this. There were others, celebrities, executives, men you admire. They were all part of it. I saw them. I was forced to please them. Murmurs filled the courtroom. The judge struck his gavel. Silence in the court. Cassie looked directly at the judge. I can name them, but I want protection. The court went into chaos. Prosecutors huddled. Together, the defense was visibly shaken. Diddy's lawyer whispered something frantically while he clenched his fists. Outside the courthouse, reporters scrambled to update headlines. Live streams were flooded with speculations. Who else was involved? Was this about to turn into the biggest celebrity scandal of the decade? As security escorted Cassie into a side room, the public was left with more questions than answers. But one thing was clear, the silence was finally broken, and this was just the beginning. The judge leaned forward, his voice low but firm. Miss Ventura, are you saying other public figures participated in these events? Cassie nodded, her face pale but determined. Her hands gripped the edges of the witness stand, as if anchoring herself to something real. Yes, she whispered, and I'm ready to give names, but only if I'm placed under full federal protection. Because once I speak, they'll come for me. Gasps echoed around the courtroom. Even Diddy, who had remained stoic for most of the hearing, shifted in his seat. The veins in his neck pulsed visibly. His lawyer quickly stood, asking for a closed session, but the judge waved him off. The witness is under oath and has the floor. She may continue. Cassie's next words sent the courtroom into full-blown chaos. One of them is a major producer at Revolt. Another is an A-list rapper who stood on stage at the Grammys last year. And the third is a top Hollywood agent who helped cover up everything. For a moment, everyone was frozen. It wasn't just about Diddy anymore. This was bigger, dirtier, and far more dangerous than anyone expected. Outside, the crowd around the courthouse doubled. News vans parked along the street. Phones buzzed, non-stop with alerts. Cassie implicates top names in Diddy abuse ring. Social media caught fire. Fans of the accused stars either defended them blindly or went into shock. Please tell me Cassie is lying. This can't be true, one fan posted. Another replied, it always looked off. The way they protected each other. Hollywood is disgusting. Trending hashtags flooded Twitter. And Cassie speaks. Shade with Diddy trial, but bombshell. Who's next? Meanwhile, inside the courtroom, Cassie described how these men would show up to Diddy's mansion at odd hours. They were never announced. They never used the front door. And when they left, they looked at me like I was trash. She paused, but I remember every single face. The defense finally exploded. Your Honor, this is a circus. We demand an immediate halt to this testimony until proof is presented. The judge slammed his gavel. You may cross-examine after the witness finishes. Until then, silence. Diddy's lawyer sat, jaw clenched, whispering urgently to his client. Cassie wiped her eyes, continued, and revealed another horrifying detail. He made me sign contracts, she said. Agreements saying I consented to everything, that I wasn't coerced. But I was. I always was. Those papers were written by his lawyers. He'd tell me, sign it, or I'll bury your mom in legal. Our bills. And I believed him. The gallery was in shock. Even some of Diddy's own supporters began looking uneasy. The public facade of power and glamour was cracking, and underneath it was something rotten. He had hidden cameras in almost every room, Cassie continued. Even in the bathroom. Once I found a lens inside a candle. I tried to break it. He broke my rib! She paused again, breathing shallow. He said it was insurance, that if I ever went public, I'd look crazy, and he'd make sure the videos came out edited to make me look like the one in control. At this point, one juror looked visibly distressed. A court officer quietly offered her water. Reporters frantically typed notes and wiping tears from their own eyes. The emotion in the room was unbearable. Cassie described a night that she said nearly killed her. It was New Year's Eve 2019. He had a guest list of 10 men. He told me I'd be the star attraction. He used those words, star attraction. I said no. He laughed, said, "You're under contract, remember?" When I tried to run, he had 2 security guards drag me back. Outside, protesters began forming. Signs read, "Believe women," and Cassie is not alone. The street was packed. Fans held candles, some chanting her name. Cassie's mother was spotted crying outside the courthouse, supported by her younger, I's daughter. Reporters whispered about the possibility of a federal investigation. Back inside, Cassie dropped another name, though the court ordered it not be released to the press. Chaos ensued. The judge ordered a temporary recess to regain control, but by now the damage was done. The story had escaped the courtroom and was flooding every timeline, every group chat, every media outlet. Cassie stood as the judge announced the break. She turned toward Diddy for the first time. Her voice cut through the tension. "You thought I'd stay scared forever, but now you get to feel what fear tastes like." Diddy didn't respond. His face was pale. His hands gripped the table so tightly his knuckles looked like they might burst through the skin. When court resumed, Cassie spoke about the psychological games Diddy would play. He'd give me gifts after hurting me. Diamonds, clothes, trips to Paris. He'd say, "See, nobody loves you like I do." And for a while, I believed him. I really believed him. She shook her head, more in disbelief than sadness. I used to be a girl who smiled all the time. Now I look in the mirror and barely recognize what's left. The court sat still, absorbing every word. The prosecution asked Cassie if she had documentation. She nodded. "I kept journals, I saved texts, I have audio clips. I just never knew if they'd matter. Now I know they do." Prosecutors signaled. They were preparing to introduce evidence, but the judge paused the session, announcing they'd reconvene the following day. The courtroom emptied slowly, heavy with silence. Outside, the noise was deafening. As Cassie left through a private exit, people cheered, cried, prayed. But deep inside, everyone knew. This story wasn't anywhere close to over. The courtroom felt different the next morning. The air was heavier, the guards more alert. Journalists whispered about threats being made overnight. And Cassie, she arrived through a back entrance with a full federal security detail. Sunglasses covered her eyes, but the tension in her shoulders told the world she hadn't slept. Inside, Diddy looked like a shadow of the man people once saw at award shows and private yacht parties. His face was sunken, his hair undone, and he no longer sat like a king in his chair. Instead, he hunched forward, eyes locked on the table in front of him. His defense team had grown. 2 more lawyers now flanked him, their faces grim. Cassie returned to the witness stand. There was no hesitation this time. "I brought the proof," she said simply. The judge nodded and a court official approached with a sealed black folder. Inside were transcripts of texts, screenshots, voice notes, and what Cassie described as the beginning of the end. The courtroom went quiet as the first audio was played aloud. In the recording, Diddy's voice was unmistakable. "You think I'm doing this for fun? I own you. If you ever breathe a word, I'll make sure nobody ever hires you again. You'll be broke, broken, and begging." A gasp filled the room. One juror covered her mouth. A woman in the back started. Crying, Cassie kept her eyes down. "That was after I tried to leave in 2020, she said. "He beat me that night, left me in a closet for hours, then came back, kissed me on the forehead, and said he forgave me." The prosecution displayed a series of photos next. Bruises on Cassie's arms, her back, a scar above her lip. Medical records that listed domestic incident, but no charges filed. "I was too scared to tell them the truth," she explained. "They asked if I fell. I said yes. And then came the text messages, one where Diddy told her, 'I fixed the hotel footage. They'll never find it.' Another where he said, 'Be ready tonight. The guests want the Cassie they saw in Miami. No attitude.' One message simply, 'I'll read. Remember the contract.'" Across the room, the jury sat frozen. Several reporters were visibly shaken. Tweets began flooding out from the courthouse. Cassie reveals damning audio in court. Ooh. Fans erupt after hearing Diddy's threats. This is beyond anything we imagined. As Cassie continued, she spoke of a chilling conversation with another woman, someone who had attended these freak-offs and confessed to being blackmailed by Diddy. She told me he had pictures, videos, said if she ever said a word, he'd release them and ruin her family. Cassie paused. She tried to kill herself last year. She couldn't take it. She couldn't take it. This detail sent a ripple through the crowd outside. More protesters showed up. Candles, photos, chants. Celebrities began posting in support, some cautiously, others defiantly. One singer tweeted, "Cassie, I believe you. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Back in the courtroom, the final recording was played. It was distorted but clear enough. A man's voice, allegedly one of the industry executives Cassie had implicated, saying, "We have to shut her up. She's about to open the gates." That was it. The judge immediately called for a closed-door meeting. Security heightened. Whispers spread of a grand jury being assembled for federal charges beyond just Diddy. Cassie was escorted from the stand, trembling but standing tall. Her testimony was over, but her battle was just beginning, and that's when Diddy stood. He didn't speak to the judge, didn't talk to his lawyers. Instead, he looked directly at Cassie as she walked by and in a low, angry voice said, "You think they'll save you? They can't." A court officer shoved him back into his seat. The judge ordered the threat be entered into record. Cassie didn't flinch. Outside, breaking news alerts spread across the globe. Diddy trial explodes with new evidence and witness. Threats. FBI reportedly monitoring possible wider abuse network in Hollywood. The mood had shifted permanently. What began as one woman's testimony was now unraveling an entire empire. That evening, a video surfaced, grainy hotel footage from 2016. Cassie, visibly distressed, was seen trying to push past two men as Diddy stood at the door. The footage was silent, but her body language screamed terror. Fans flooded comment sections with outrage. How did no one stop this? We failed her. By nightfall, one of the other named individuals had released a statement denying everything. I have no idea what Cassie is talking about. I'll read. But fans weren't buying it. Cassie released a handwritten note through her attorney. It read, "I never thought I'd survive this long. If anything happens to me, know that I told the truth." The world didn't sleep that night, and the next morning, everything would change. The following morning, the courthouse was swarmed. Helicopters circled overhead. SWAT vans were spotted 2 blocks away. Something big was coming, and everyone could feel it. Overnight, leaks had spilled into the press. Federal investigators had allegedly raided one of Diddy's private estates in the hills. Rumors whispered that encrypted hard drives, locked safes, and dozens of blackmail tapes had been seized. Cassie arrived under full federal escort, surrounded by 4 agents in black suits. This wasn't just about testimony anymore. It was now national. Reporters screamed her name as she entered, but she didn't stop, didn't wave. Her face was unreadable. Inside, tension was electric. The prosecution stood ready, eyes locked. On the judge, Diddy's side looked rattled. His top lawyer was absent, replaced by a new face. Rumors suggested he had quit overnight. The judge opened the session with heavy words. The court has received credible threats against the witness and this court. Let the record show that this is now a matter of federal oversight. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Cassie sat down again, but this time she was flanked by 2 marshals. She wasn't just a witness anymore. She was the key to unlocking a monster. Cassie spoke softly but firmly. "I want to finish what I started." She pulled a small flash drive from her coat pocket and handed it to the bailiff. "This contains clips from security footage I managed to save. Before he wiped everything, I sent backups to a friend. Some of these clips are from 2015, others from just 2 years ago." The judge looked to the prosecution. They nodded. The first clip played on a courtroom screen, grainy time-stamped footage of Diddy yelling at Cassie in a studio hallway. It was late at night. He was slamming his fist into the wall, cornering her. No sound, but her body language told the story. She cowered, backed up, tried to slip away. At one point, he grabbed her arm and yanked her violently. The clip cut out. Their gasps filled the room. Another clip showed a private party. Flashing lights, celebrities dancing. In the corner, Cassie sat on the couch, motionless, surrounded by men. Her face was blank, her eyes distant. One man leaned in, said something in her ear. She didn't respond. The clip froze as the screen faded to black. Cassie's voice cracked. That was my life. A puppet in a room full of predators. The judge asked her if she wanted to press formal charges beyond this case. She nodded. Yes, against all of them. And then the courtroom exploded with whispers as the door swung open and 3 FBI agents entered, speaking directly to the judge. He stood, conferred with them privately, then made the announcement that would send shockwaves through Hollywood. This trial will proceed under federal jurisdiction. Sealed indictments have been issued, and further arrests are expected. Diddy stood, enraged. This is a witch hunt, he shouted. She's lying. They're all lying. 2 guards grabbed him as he tried to step forward. The judge pounded his gavel. Mr. Combs, you're in contempt. Sit down or be removed. Outside, the world was already reacting. TV networks broke into scheduled programming. Headlines flashed. Diddy trial turns federal. Cassie hands over blackmail tapes. Industry faces reckoning. And then, one of the most shocking moments of the entire saga occurred. A surprise witness had come forward overnight. A former producer who had worked closely with Diddy during his peak years. He was flown in under protection, and now he was taking the stand. His voice shook. I saw everything. I was paid to destroy tapes, to hack emails, to plant stories. Cassie isn't lying. If anything, she's being careful. The real story, it's worse. He revealed that there was a private server in one of Diddy's studios filled with recordings. Some staged, others real, all incriminating. He kept trophies, the producer said. He'd show them off like war medals. Cassie turned her face away, barely able to listen. And just when the court thought they had heard it all, the producer dropped a final blow. I once heard him say, "No one will ever take me down. I made too many people rich." The courtroom was stunned. Even the defense attorneys looked hollow. The illusion of power, fame, and money had collapsed completely. What remained was a portrait of absolute darkness, abuse, manipulation, fear, and control. The judge declared the court would recess until further notice, citing the overwhelming volume of new evidence and impending federal action. Cassie exited the courtroom without saying a word. Cameras tried to catch her face, but her head was down. Her journey wasn't over, not by a long shot. But something had changed. She had gone from victim to warrior, and the industry was no longer safe behind its glittering facade. Back inside, Diddy sat alone. His lawyers no longer spoke. His allies had gone silent, and the world was watching. As the courtroom emptied and news vans roared outside, the world sat in stunned silence. Cassie's voice had ignited a fire, one that couldn't be put out. What began as a quiet testimony became a nationwide reckoning. The glittering facade of fame had been shattered, revealing something rotten beneath. One by one, secrets long buried were being pulled into the light. And yet, with every revelation, more questions surfaced. Who else knew? Who helped cover it up? How deep did the corruption run? Diddy was no longer the untouchable mogul. He was now a man under federal scrutiny, his empire cracking at every seam. His name, once associated with luxury and power, was now drenched in scandal and fear. Cassie had done what few dared. She stood up, she spoke, and she didn't stop, even when the world tried to silence her. But this is just the beginning, because more voices are coming forward, more stories will be told, and the house of cards is collapsing. So what do you think? Do you believe Cassie? Is this the fall of one man or the exposure of an entire system? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you, and if this story gripped you even half as much as it gripped the world, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to see the truth, and subscribe for the next explosive update. Because trust us, what's coming next will shake everything. This isn't just a trial. This is history unfolding, and you're watching it happen, one testimony at a time.